Electronisounds Audio, the YouTube channel for you.
Hey, what is happening, guys? It's Dean from Electronisounds, and you are gonna want to stick around. This is the big one, guys. Do you know what this is? This is Beatmaker 3 on an iPad. This is my absolute favorite, and in my opinion, most powerful DAW on iOS, guys. It's just gotten a major update, and we now have MIDI sync available in and out from Beatmaker 3. This is huge. This is the first video in a series about using MIDI with Beatmaker 3. Stick around, guys. Let's do this. Be sure and subscribe if you're into this kind of content. On this channel, I talk about everything from hardware to making music with iPads. I talk about live jams, I talk about making tracks, we talk about sound design, we talk about old gear, we talk about new gear, all that good stuff. Be sure and subscribe, guys. In my opinion, guys, getting MIDI compatibility and clock input and clock output from Beatmaker 3 is really opening basically the entire world of hardware up to being compatible and jamming, with this app. What I've done today is I've taken the rave-o-lution 309 from Quasi MIDI. This is one of my favorite classic groove boxes, and I've MIDI'd this up to Beatmaker 3. What we're doing is, this is my new iPad Pro here. This is the latest model. I finally upgraded from my Air 2s. This is a lot more powerful. I can still max it out without much difficulty, using today's modern plugins, but it's a night and day difference from the Air 2 and absolutely amazing to work with. I'm using just the Apple brand USB-C to HDMI, which also has a port to charge the iPad while we're working, and a port for USB, which I've got running into the iRig MIDI 2. We're not doing any audio coming out of the iPad today. We're only working with MIDI, so I don't have an audio interface even in this mix at all. We're just taking MIDI out. I've got, standard MIDI cable coming out from the iRig going into the rave-o-lution. The only reason that the analog heat is here is because I'm running an external output from the bass sound of this to get a little bit more, dirty sound and saturation on that particular sound. It's not being used as an audio interface per se. We're just doing MIDI today. And what I've done is I've set this up, guys. This has got 5, instruments in it: a kick instrument, a snare, a hi-hat, a percussion instrument, and a bass slash lead synthesizer instrument. And I've connected those up so that I can literally program any notes I want into these 5 instruments, and then use the scenes inside of Beatmaker 3 to go ahead and, make those changes. This is something that really takes an old groove box like this to a whole nother level. Because, typically with something like this, you might make a song and you might, spend the time to program like 8 patterns in something like this. But with Beatmaker 3 controlling it, I can very easily program much more than 8 patterns. I can use Beatmaker's scenes mode to do like 16 patterns right off the jump without even having to, scroll to a different screen. And we're going to get into all this in this episode and in a whole lot more episodes, guys. So make sure that you're subscribed to the channel if you're into any of this kind of stuff, or if you're just starting out with Beatmaker 3. Be sure and subscribe. Let's get into this. It's not really about the music today, so we're not doing direct sound, but just so you can kind of get an idea of what we're setting up here. I can still interact with the machine on this side as the sequencing is taking place from Beatmaker 3, which is the total bonus. I can mute the tracks, I can change the instruments in real time. This really opens up a whole other world to what you can do when you're connecting it to your groove boxes. Okay, let me show you how I've actually got this routed. Depending on what specific gear you want to use with Beatmaker 3, and depending on whether you want Beatmaker 3 to control your gear, or whether you want Beatmaker 3 just to start and stop your gear, or whether you want your gear to start and stop Beatmaker 3. There's quite a bit of variations and options for what we could do with Beatmaker 3 and MIDI in our gear, and so we're going to do quite a bit of videos on this. Today, guys, we're going to do a really simple setup to how to control an external internal groove box that has multiple sounds built into it. This could also be done with like something like the Electron Digitact, or the Roland MC707 new groove box, or the Akai Force, or the MPC Live, or the Electron, or any of the older Electribes from Korg. You could use this method. And what we're going to do is we're going to use one bank, and we're just going to tell the individual pads to trigger the sounds that we want to trigger inside of the rave-o-lution. The first thing we have to do is we have to drop a sample onto the pads that we want to use to activate the pads, because currently they're all just empty pads, okay? So this is up to you what sample you want to drop onto the pads. I'll typically just load up a really, really tiny hi-hat. It's like 2.6 kilobytes, right? So it's like nothing. It's not going to try to play a big, long sound every time I, use this sample. Okay, so I'll just take that and I'll drag that onto 5 pads because I want to trigger 5 different sounds from the rave-o-lution. Okay, now we're going to go into the new MIDI settings window to set up your audio and your MIDI devices. Now mine is already set up, but you're going to need to configure this screen specifically as to what output devices you're using. We're using the iRig MIDI 2. I also have a video that talks a little bit more about different ways you can connect 5-pin MIDI to your iPad. So if you haven't seen that, or if you're not real familiar with getting 5-pin MIDI connected to your iPad, I'll put a link to that video here. Currently, Beatmaker 3 is recognizing the iRig MIDI 2, and I've told it, it's turned on. All my MIDI devices are turned on, basically, and we've told it to sync the MIDI clock here, sync to iRig MIDI 2, okay? I've got MIDI clock out, turned on. I'm not worried about Ableton Link or MIDI clock in or any of that kind of stuff at this time, okay? So now, just right off the jump, this is a brand new session that we've started. If I press play, it should go ahead and start the whatever you've got as your groove box going, and this is currently playing an empty pattern right now, which is what we want. So if I were to press play and it wasn't an empty pattern, it would start playing, whatever pattern was selected at whatever beats per minute, whatever tempo is set in Beatmaker 3. So currently I've got an empty pattern set here. Fantastic. And what we're going to do is we're going to tell these pads to trigger the sounds inside of the rave-o-lution so we can program with it inside of Beatmaker 3. Okay, so we're going to open up our first sampler window here. I'm going to turn the gain down to 0 on all 5 pads because we don't want to hear these sounds. We just want to use this to trigger MIDI, okay? Now I'm going to go back and start setting these up. Now where you set your pads can be up to you. You don't have to do it in the way that I'm doing it. You could spread them out anywhere you want. You can even spread them out across multiple banks, which I will show you in another video. That's why we have to do a series on this, guys. So with the pad you want selected, and the first window here is open as channel, we're going to click the little 3 dots right there, okay? And it's going to open your options window here. We can go to MIDI setup and we can tell it on the MIDI output port, click this, and we're going to choose iRig MIDI 2, okay? So when I hit this, it's going to send the MIDI signal out to the iRig MIDI 2, which is plugged into the rave-o-lution, okay? Now we go back and I tell it what channel it's set to send its information on. The kick drum on this is set to channel 1. It's literally just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, So I'm going to tell this to respond to channel 1. Now right off the jump, I'm activating the kick drum. So I can choose the next pad over, okay? I can click the little 3 options, the 3 dots options window, and go to MIDI setup. We can choose port iRig MIDI 2, so anytime I hit this pad, it's going to send the signal out to that, MIDI port. And I want channel 2 for instrument number 2. Okay, now we'll do the same thing for 3. Click the 3 dots, go to MIDI setup, MIDI output, port, iRig MIDI 2. We'll go back, set the channel to 3. Now I'm got my kick and my hats. Now we'll do the 4th one here. Click the dots, MIDI setup, and iRig MIDI 2 and bank channel 4. That's going to give me sequencing of the percussion channel And then lastly, go to the 3 samples. Make sure you're, highlighting the pad you want. MIDI setup, port, iRig MIDI 2, channel 5, okay? Now, channel 5 is sending to the melodic synthesizer inside of the rave-o-lution. So when you're going to want to play more than one note of that, all you have to do is have this selected and go to keys mode. And now we're playing whatever the sound here is selected, guys. So we can just immediately start programming ourselves a beat with something like this. We can put the tempo up to say, I don't know, 120, right? And let's see here. Get our metronome on. Sorry, I don't usually use the metronome, so now you gotta suffer me trying to find the metronome. Sorry if this is painful to watch, I'll find it. There it is. You just got to click the record button again. Okay. But since we have no audio interface today, the metronome is very, very quiet. Cool. And then if we go to our bank here, and we put this, sorry about all the rigmarole there. If we press the play button here and make sure our loop is on, cool. So let's just assume that we're gonna, mess around with just a 1-bar beat just for example's sake. If I hit record again, and then I could hit record off, I could tap this pad, go to keys mode. I could even go to scales mode, put us into a scale for the melodic part. I could, let's see here, set this down to maybe like, maybe go down to an F1 as my root key. Now I'm in the scale of F minor pentatonic. I could hit record again and just, put in a quick mess around. 3 and... And just like that, guys, there we are controlling, an external instrument with Beatmaker 3. I've made sure that I previously set up the internal settings on the rave-o-lution to respond to MIDI CLOCk from an external source. You'll want to do that on whatever you're, controlling so that the effects inside of that box will sync up to the beat per minute and tempo as well. So let's see here. You could go through now and you could start programming different scenes like I've showed in my other videos. And then right off the jump, you just can interact with your device. As simple as this, guys. I hope this is useful and I hope this made sense as to the way we're setting this up. I'm going to do a lot more videos on how to get this going. I really want to stress again how important it is to get your tempo on your external devices set so that it will receive MIDI clock and that it will start its internal clock when it receives that MIDI clock signal from the external device, in this case being Beatmaker 3. So whatever boxes you've got, whether it's a synth, whether it's a drum machine, whether it's a groove box, whether it's a sampler, make sure that you've got it set internally to respond to an external MIDI clock signal, guys. Hey guys, I know that everybody is really excited about this new update to Beatmaker 3, and I want to let you know that if you have questions or if you have specific bugs on your end, to please head on over to the official Beatmaker 3 forum and post those there. That way, you can for sure get somebody from Intua to know about the problem and start looking into the problem for future updates. I don't work for Intua and I can't answer all your questions, but I'll do the best I can to answer what you've got under the video. Thanks, guys.